Okay. The first table item that we will hear this evening is 1304 Lake Road, Cottage 3. Is the applicant here this evening?
On behalf of the applicant.
Okay. You'll need to step up to the podium, state your name, address, and describe your product.
Hi, my name is Sarah Sage, and I am the daughter of Robin and Paul Cohen, who are listed as the owners of 1304 Lake Road, Cottage 3. I live in Penfield, 1400 Wayland Road in Penfield, so I'm here representing them today. They're looking to make alterations to their existing porch. They're not expanding the footprint of the building at all. But they want to be able to sort of enclose that porch and use it for a laundry facility, which does not currently exist on the property. They do already have water and electric to the property, so it's really just basically adding this laundry room onto the existing porch of the property.
Could you give us just a little bit of background on Right on the Lake? That's it, right on the lake.
Yep, so it is a land lease community. It's owned by the Hagedorn family, and so my parents own the building. They own the cottage number 3, but they lease the land from the Hagedorns. It is a seasonal property, so it is not open in the wintertime, which is why they're not here right now. It is open from May 1st until October 31st every year, and then at October 31st it closes up for the winter, water's turned off, and so it's only those 6 months out of the year that they live in it.
Do you know what type of stipulations are in place with this land lease?
I'm sorry?
I'm just wondering, with this land lease, there's got to be some terms associated with that lease. What some of the stipulations are in terms of the activities on the structure itself.
I mean, my understanding is that they do own the structure, that they are expected to run any major external changes by the property manager, who is Bob Drake, and they have discussed this project with Bob Drake, and they do have approval from him. There are many other many other buildings on the property that have had much larger structural changes, adding additional floors, adding to the footprint of the cottage within the past even year. So, you know, this, in the grand scheme of things, is a pretty small project comparatively.
So I guess what's interesting to me is that we've never had an application that I'm aware of.
I mean, I'm just telling you what I can literally see with
No,
my eyes.
I'm making a comment back to the board. Have we ever dealt with anything in this area? So it sounds like there's a lot of activity that, for some reason, this is the first time we've had in many years.
I'm pretty sure that Bob is the one who recommended that they do this to the board.
Yeah, so if I may explain to the board a little history on this property. There are several seasonal cottages, as you well know by visiting the property. It was brought to our attention actually through a tour of the DEC when they came into town a couple years ago. They became aware of this property and some things that were occurring on it that were not in compliance with the FEMA floodplain regulations. So once that was brought to the town's attention, we engaged with the Hagedorn Partnership. We entered into a memorandum of understanding, educated them on the FEMA floodplain rules, and they have since signed an agreement with the town that any of the cottage owners wishing to do any modifications need to come to the town for approval and building permits. So that is why you are now going to be seeing applications from this community, because in years past there has been a lot of changes and unpermitted activity, but now it is on our radar, and we have a mutually agreed upon agreement with the property owner. So that's a little background information. say this one particular cottage is actually not in the floodplain, which is why we allowed it to even be considered. And they're not expanding the footprint at all, they're just simply enclosing an existing open air porch.
So I guess the question that I have for any future application that comes in front of us, the way this is worded, the request is for alterations to a pre-existing non-conforming structure.
That is correct. The whole property is a single property with multiple buildings, and that is certainly pre-existing non-conforming.
So in reality, we would probably never see a side rear setback, or
Correct.
we're always going to see some type of alteration.
That would be my guess.
Any comment or questions?
I think that's the only project out there in Turner. There's nothing else like it. They're not gonna expand the footprint of the building. I went and looked at it. There's a huge berm between them and the lake. The cottage to the east is already back closer to the lake than this one is, so it's not really gonna, how it impacts anyway. It's gonna only more space for longer.
How might you have is, what zoning do we abide by? I know it's also waterfront development. That whole parcel is, cottages that are pre-existing and conforming.
So, does the association, is it an association?
It's not like a homeowners association, I don't believe.
No,
Is there a board, internal board that approves these?
no. It's just the property manager.
Just the property manager has executive decision on?
Because he's acting on behalf of the owner, not on behalf of
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure the owners could override the property manager, but typically they aren't involved, it's just the property manager.
the property manager is acting at the owner's
Correct, yes,
direction.
yes.
Yeah, they actually accompanied the applicants to the permit counter when this was first submitted. So it does have everybody's full blessing. And I do believe we provided the owner's affidavit.
Correct.
This is the last meeting.
I was looking for that.
This one I would be less concerned about because it's an existing footprint. They're enclosing the porch on the front side of it. But at any point, they could put a 20 by 20 addition on, as long as it's approved by the property owner. And you could effectively almost connect all these buildings together, and there's no, I guess now it has to come in front of us.
Well, yes, part of the memorandum of understanding is also as cottages become dilapidated, that are in the floodplain, and people move out of them, they have to be removed or relocated. So the whole intent is to get this whole property back into compliance with state and federal flood regulations.
And get the bridge so it's structurally stable.
Correct.
Are they able to repair their property if they're in floodplain?
Depending on the nature of it and the extent, if they're making if they surpass a certain threshold of improvements, then that triggers the need to bring the whole structure up to today's flood code, building code. So it's a very fine line with what can and cannot be done in this area. They initially came in for an addition, like a 10 by 20 addition on the front of the structure, which would have been in the floodplain, and we would not allow that. So this was their alternative solution.
Yeah, this is significantly smaller than the original plan.
So the creek is actually the cause of the flood, not the lake.
Correct.
Okay.
I think, at least from my standpoint, the hesitation that I have is, what does the future hold in terms of further development in this right on the lake community? And how do we, to Don's point, how and what are we trying to adhere to?
In terms of dimensional regulations.
Once again, I think with this one, in my opinion, it's an existing porch, it's within the existing footprint. They're enclosing it for laundry.
I think in the future, I think this is what you're trying to say, what are the dimensional regulations, because there's no normal setbacks in the whole project. In other words, how do we grant a variance for something where it's not like R3, we got 50 feet from the street, 15 feet from the side. There's no dimensional regulations in place.
I mean, is it a concern this evening that by taking some action on this, that somehow this board is setting some precedent or opening itself up? I mean, the issue you raise is obviously a good one, but not necessarily.
Not with respect to this application. I just want to make sure that we fully understand going forward, because this sounds like it's a new understanding, this new memorandum of understanding that was executed between the Hagedorn Partnership and the town is specific to this property. We could be seeing a lot of applications coming through.
Did you include that in the materials?
What's that?
The MOU?
I can certainly provide you with a copy, but
Yeah, to reiterate, I have no concerns with this application. It's the existing footprint, it's enclosing the space. Once again, I guess if we were to grant this variance, we're just approving the extension of a pre-existing non-conforming structure.
Just enclosing the existing area that's already under a roof.
Right.
Yeah. Foundation's there and roof's there.
Yeah, and actually, we just had to redone this past year because there was some damage, so it's brand new.
So maybe it's not so much, maybe what we need to understand going forward is how are we going to address future applications? What does that look like? What's in that memorandum of understanding? As long as it passes through the property manager, is that, what does that mean? This one, I think we could proceed. I'm fine proceeding with this one, but for future, I'd like to really understand what does this process entail?
Yeah, well, because the concern, as long as it stays within the original four corners, I don't think we have issue, at least it doesn't sound like the board has issue with it, but looking at the number of parcels that are down there or buildings that are down there, even just, when we have the houses along the lake that are close to each other, just the building material code, the fireproof, some of those were uncomfortably close for me, I guess is how I would put it. So how do we handle that as a board when there is really no setback regulation? I would probably say that what the homes are within the trailer community or mobile home community.
Maybe we could, after this application, maybe we could get further, maybe we could have a mini workshop or whatever is required so that we can all get an understanding of how we treat these going forward. It's very clear to me, walking around this property, that every other house has put on some kind of extension over the years.
We're not really looking at variance, just permission.
Right.
Yeah.
Josh, is it something that you could take to the, either the liaison who happens to be the supervisor or the town board and see if they can make this workshop item?
For the town board workshop.
Well, again, I
It is a very unique situation,
I remember running across this back in the days. Same situation.
This property.
This one, yes. Yeah, the owner, I'm sorry, I don't believe that there was a cottage ordinance or, which was never found. He looked for some sort of common board resolution permitting the central complete to this. Could never find one either. It extends back to my municipal ordinance.
Can you get closer to the phones?
Sure.
Thank you.
So again, I don't know, I don't want to, we don't want to violate the public meetings law, but if there is a workshop, this could be an added item and an open invitation to the board members. So there could be an exchange on that.
Yeah, I think that's appropriate. This application is, or anyone wishing to speak for or against this application? Seeing no one, will return the discussion back to the board. I'm going to assume this is an unlisted action. All in favor?
Aye.
So I guess, you know, in terms of, I think Barry pointed out, this is more of an approval. I think it was you, Barry, that said that. I would make a motion. I think in terms of findings of fact, we've kind of hit on everything, some of the concerns that the board has. The fact that this is one tax parcel, there's got to be at least, I think, 60, 70 different structures on this property. As was pointed out, there is a memorandum of understanding based on some recent DEC findings or DEC site visit that has spurred an agreement between the Hagedorn, is it the Hagedorn Partnership, and the town to be able to review future development within this parcel. I think at this point in time, the board is really just making a motion to approve something that has been previously approved by the property manager in terms of this enclosure of the existing porch, covered porch. So, anybody have anything else to add? Yes, I'll make a motion to approve let me rephrase this. I'll make a motion to approve the alterations to a pre-existing non-conforming structure to allow the enclosure of an existing covered porch at cottage number 3 within right on the lake on a 30.86 acre parcel having SBL number 036.03-1-1-21 located in a WD waterfront development district under section 225-100 of the code of the town of Webster for the property at 1304 Lake Road. Second.
Mr. Newtown?
Aye.
Mr. Barone?
Aye.
Mrs. Bola? Aye. Mr. Hauser?
Aye.
And then the only recommendation I think that this board is putting forward is to engage in some kind of future discussion, perhaps at a board workshop, to get a better understanding on how this zoning board of appeals will handle future applications. Okay, a couple of conditions apply. Must obtain all necessary governmental permits, including a town building permit, in 1 year meaningful construction is set to expire 1 year from this evening. Thank you.
Thank you.